It's incredible. The audience always seems to know right when we're about to go. So, and at that, it's 7 p.m. So we'll call this meeting to order. For the Pledge of Allegiance, I'd like to recognize Troop 408, who will be leading us with the posting of the colors.
Color guard forward march. Color guard halt. And salute. Prepare to post the colors. Post the colors. May you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Return to ranks. Color guard forward march. Color guard halt. Color guard dismissed, audience dismissed.
Thank you so much, Troop 408. It's always an honor to have some of our scouts always help us with that tradition. And I know a few of you will be staying the meeting to learn some, so you picked a great meeting to join us for. So that being the case, Deputy Clerk, could we have a roll call, please?
Mayor Pulaski.
Here.
Trustee Delapenna.
Here.
Trustee Domke.
Here.
Trustee Forsythe.
Here.
Trustee Lanisa. Here. Trustee Pierkowski.
Here.
Trustee Trejo.
Here. And we have a quorum. We'll now move on to presentation of the prepared agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Hang on 1 second. I'd like to make a motion to remove item 18 from the agenda before you approve it.
Thank you. There's a motion to amend the agenda by Trustee Delapenna. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Trustee Domke. Any discussion? Unfortunately, the ambulance we were going to try to purchase is now going to be back in service with an unfortunate accident in their community. So all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Any abstentions? That amendment is approved. Is there a motion to approve the amended agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Trustee Trejo. Trustee Domke seconds. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Seeing none, that motion carries. We'll then move on to Village Board public comment. Anyone wishing to provide a comment on a topic or an agenda item may address the Village Board during the public comment and public hearing segments of the Village Board agenda by submitting comments in advance using the online form or during the meeting. Madam Clerk, do we have any submitted in advance?
We do. We have two comments. One was submitted. The first one is from Bruce Dombeck. The Monday, 2/21/24 Daily Herald, page 3, had an article about the Village of Wheaton receiving funds to support its water treatment plant upgrades, titled Sanitary District to receive $2.6 million in federal EPA funds. What allows Wheaton to receive funding that prohibits Roselle from receiving funding?
I had a chance to speak with the resident last week, but for everyone's knowledge on the record, that was done through the congressional discretionary kind of funding projects, and each Congress individual has that ability to direct funding towards projects. In that case, that was Congressman Caston's district when we've worked with Congressman Raja. He's had different priorities that he's been looking for. One of the things that's usually a consistent priority is shovel-ready projects, and those projects are just not at that point to be shovel-ready to receive those types of consideration. The other thing is for Wheaton, it's not just serving Wheaton itself, but Wheaton's actually part of a larger sanitary district. Our Cook County residents are a part of the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District, or MWRD. And so it's a similar system where a number of communities have a shared system to treat their sewage water. And so in that case, that grant not only benefited Wheaton, but a number of other communities. And that was probably something that attributed to it being rated higher. With that being the case, we will always continue to pursue grant funding. Unfortunately, a lot of the things that are out there, we have to find these kind of more open-ended grant opportunities. There's nothing specific for wastewater or whatnot. I had the opportunity last week or 2 weeks ago to actually have lunch with Senator Duckworth, where I raised these concerns to her, and we're hopeful to work with her staff to see if there's opportunities to address this, because this is a very large looming issue for not just Roselle, but a number of municipalities across the Midwest. So. And did we have any comment or any comment slips submitted in advance?
This comment comes from Beck McClaskey. Can you please explain home rule in plain language for the average voter? Why would realtors be against it?
So home rule in the state of Illinois is a designation that was created in the 1970s Constitution. And essentially all that it means is if you have 25,001 residents, you automatically get it. And if you do not, you have to ask the voters to give you that authority. And home rule essentially allows the village to make laws and decisions that are otherwise not prohibited by the state of Illinois, versus today, Roselle and other non-home rule communities can only make decisions that the state explicitly says that they're allowed to make decisions on. So one is very kind of more restricted by the state. The other one has a lot more open-ended possibilities. The decision that the board had gone through was actually informed by residents. We did 4 public forums last year to get input from the community, because we really saw 3 options that we had to address the unfunded mandates we have. One was to increase water rates to the tune of $20 per 1,000 gallons by 2032. One was to institute a non-home rule sales tax, which would be done by referendum, but would not fully fund the improvements that need to be done, or to go for home rule, which would allow the village to dynamically change that revenue source to make sure it can fulfill those obligations, or should things change down the road, reduce those needs down the road. Based on those public hearings, over 70% of the community members that responded to our survey or thereabout said that they preferred home rule as an option. And so that informed the board to go forward with putting forward the home rule referendum. Should it not pass, the water rates have already been passed to go into effect. And in fact, tonight we'll be starting the process to take out the Illinois EPA loans to pay for these projects. So, it's an unfortunate situation that we're in. I don't think any of us would have like to be in this situation, but unfortunately that's kind of when these things are passed by other powers that we have to figure out what the best course of action is. And so hopefully that was a high level answer to a very complicated question. So, and to the point about the realtors, it's hard to speculate on why one might be motivated. I know oftentimes realtors historically have been in opposition to property taxes being increased, something that this board has passed a resolution that requires this board and future boards to adhere to PTEL, which is would be property taxes not raising above inflation, or 5%, whichever is less. To do anything other than that, the board would have to rescind that and vote against it, and then have to make that increase happen. The other thing would be a real estate transfer tax. That's something that's been highly publicized in the city of Chicago recently, but that's something that even with home rule, the village does not have the authority to implement that unilaterally. That would have to be voted on by referendum by the voters as well, and that's something that this board has indicated that they're not interested in as well. Those are usually the things. Other things could be requiring property owners to be better about property maintenance sometimes, and especially with rental properties. That's something that some realtor groups do not like, but I think that, at the end of the day, I can't, the realtors I've spoken to that are actually local to this community and not, outside of our community, they have not expressed concerns to me directly about it. In fact, welcome it. So. Is there any other public comment here tonight? Seeing none, we'll move on with our agenda. So we'll move to officials and staff reports. Under mine, I'm just going to switch the order of things a little bit here. And I'm really happy and excited to be able to declare a proclamation. And I'm just going to call it HCM. And when they get up here to talk, they can pronounce it because I'm not a medical professional and I don't want to botch it. But we're going to have a proclamation approved to honor February 28th, 2024 is HCM Day in the village of Roselle, which we'll learn a little bit more about. But HCM is one of the most common inherited heart diseases and can affect anyone regardless of age, gender, or ethnicity, with a reported prevalence ranging from 1 to 200 to 1 in 500 in the general population. And whereas 700,000 to 1.6 million people in the United States have HCM, yet 85% of them remain undiagnosed. And where HCM shares symptoms with other common cardiovascular and pulmonary diseases such as shortness of breath, chest pain, fatigue, palpitations, and fainting, making it hard to distinguish HCM from other diseases. And whereas the fourth Wednesday in February, I'm kind of skipping around. If everyone wants to read the whole thing, you can. But I think this is some of the important parts for Roselle. But whereas the fourth Wednesday in February is an appropriate day to observe HCM Awareness Day. And also we want to acknowledge our Roselle residents and HCM advocates, Abby Cannon and Meredith Cannon, for bringing attention to this important issue and to celebrate their significant milestones in their journey to recover from HCM, both having heart transplants and being daughters of Roselle. So therefore, I, David Pileski, Mayor of the Village of Roselle, do hereby proclaim February 20th, 2024 as HCM Day in the Village of Roselle. So if I could have a motion from the board.
So moved.
Second that.
So I had a motion from trustee Trejo and a second from trustee Domke. Any discussion from the board?
Excited to hear their presentation.
Awesome. All right. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Any abstentions? That motion carries. I would like to invite Abby and Meredith out so they can receive the proclamation. I'll let you say a few words.
Well, thank you, first of all, for taking this into consideration. My sister and I have lived here. She's lived here her whole life. I've lived here since 1981. My dad's been a business owner since the 80s in Roselle. My mom was a school teacher in District 12, and so we really were raised by Roselle. My husband and I own 2 businesses here. And so why this is important to us. Hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, or HCM, is a very prevalent disease that's often undiagnosed. You are not born with it. We were not born with heart disease. It's actually a genetic mutation that worsens over time for many. And so in our case, there weren't medicines that could help us, and so it led to needing a heart transplant. I had my heart transplant 7 years ago. Actually, my anniversary is tomorrow. It'll be 7 years. And Meredith just had hers. It'll be a month ago this Thursday. So right here in our little town, there's 2 of us that have lives, many of us, not just 2, but our lives have been significantly impacted by HCM. And the positive thing I want to bring, which is why I'm excited about Awareness Day, is that there are medicines coming out right now that are actually helping people with HCM avoid transplants. And so it's just really important that people understand what it is, what the symptoms are, and that they get checked by their healthcare provider. So thank you guys for allowing us to take part in this.
The good times rolling, we'll go ahead and I'll have the police chief, Rob Barretto, come up because we have to do some swearing ins tonight.
Thank you all for coming tonight. We're going to do 2 swearing-ins. The first one we're going to do is Officer Diana Cantu to Sergeant Diana Cantu. I'll invite everyone after we do these 2 swearing-ins to go over to the police department training room where we have some refreshments for everybody. We'll stop downstairs for some pictures, and then after that, DC Beta will lead everybody over. So Diana Cantu was hired by the Roselle Police Department in 2005. Diana is a 20-year veteran of the United States Army and has the distinction of being deployed overseas 5 times. 3 of those deployments were to active combat zones in Iraq and Afghanistan. Currently, Diana holds the rank of Staff Sergeant in the Army Reserve and coordinates the training of an entire company of soldiers. Diana Cantu has served, or currently serves, the Roselle Police Department as an officer in charge, union president, a range instructor, a taser instructor, field training officer, and a juvenile officer. I'm proud to have Diana join the ranks of the Roselle Police Department's leadership team and know that she'll make a positive impact, immediate impact on our organization. Come on up, Diana.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name,
I, Diana Cantu,
having been appointed to the position of police sergeant
having been appointed to the position of police sergeant
in the village of Roselle,
in the village of Roselle,
in the counties of DuPage and Cook,
counties of DuPage and Cook,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and will faithfully discharge the duties
of police sergeant
of police sergeant
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations, Sergeant. And who will be pinning you tonight?
My wife
All right.
and my daughter. Start with thanking the mayor very much, and board, fire police commission, and of course. Board, and thank you to my shipmates that have supported me throughout and always been good. And my family's all here. I have parents who are here. My other daughter is Holly, daughter hanging out over there. Thank you guys for your support as well, pushing me to my goals, especially for next supporting me. Things I need to do to get where I want. So, help.
Congratulations. Congratulations, sir.
Keep this going. We're going to swear in a new officer tonight. Alex Montez is a 2019 graduate of the Cook County Sheriff's Police Academy and started his career at Metra that same year. At Metra, Alex was assigned to their Special Operations Unit and was also selected to be a field training officer. Alex decided to transfer to the Roselle Police Department because he wanted the opportunity to make more meaningful contacts with the people that he is policing. Additionally, Alex was attracted to the 12-hour shifts and the family-friendly culture at our police department. We're happy to have Alex join our team and look forward to him having a long and productive career. Come on up, Alex.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name,
I, Alex Montes,
having been appointed to the position of police officer
having been appointed to the position of police officer
in the village of Roselle,
in the village of Roselle,
in the counties of DuPage and Cook,
in the counties of DuPage and Cook,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
of police officer
of police officer
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations and welcome.
Thank you.
And who will be pinning you tonight?
My fiance.
Come on up.
That's it, but I'd like to thank the mayor, village board, Chief Corrado, fire police commission for the amazing opportunity. I'd also like to thank my family and friends for supporting me, to the Kingston Police Department, and my friends on the road. Thank you.
And what I'll just say before everyone's dismissed for cake and cookies, whether you're a veteran on the department or you're new to the Roselle family, we take it very seriously what you do and offer to us. You make sacrifices, your family is missing you, and so we want to make sure that we treat all of our employees with respect and care, but we also make sure that you've got the right equipment, the right training, the right facilities, so that way you come home safe every day. So thank you for what you do for our community, and thank you for all your tribe that's here today for sharing them with us as well. So thank you and congratulations. While the audience thins out a little bit, I also have, Tom, I have a way, finance of clearing out the room. I would like to ask the board for a motion to reappoint Tom Dahl to the Fighters Pension Board for a 3-year term.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Trustee Trejo made that motion. Trustee Domke seconded it. Is there any discussion? All I'll say is thank you, Tom, for serving in that capacity for 3 more years. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Hearing none. With that being the case, I think the only other thing I would remind everyone is between now and our next meeting is we have a coffee with the board here at Village Hall. So join us if you have any questions about anything on your mind, March 9th. So we always have pastries and coffee and other warm non-alcoholic beverages for us to enjoy in the morning. So come and join us for a friendly conversation, learn more about the village and your board. With that being the case, that's all I have for my report. Is there any village trustees that have a report tonight? Trustee Domke.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I wanted to say that there's a hockey game coming on between the first responders from Roselle and Bloomingdale versus the Lake Park High School hockey team. So this is on Saturday, March 16th from 5 to 8 at the Winter Classic Charity Hockey Game at West Meadows Ice Arena in Rolling Meadows. Come and support our finest and bravest as they look to win back-to-back championships against the Lake Park Hockey Club. All proceeds will go to Tunnel 2 Towers, an organization that dedicated to helping both veterans and first responders who have had catastrophic injury, as well as the families of those that have fallen. There will be a 50-50 raffle, prizes, commemorative first responder jerseys, and a winter classic hats for purchase. You can scan a QR code to buy tickets, and I don't know if they're gonna raise anybody's jersey to the rafters, but probably somebody on our first responders should probably win that same thing that Chelios won for the Blackhawks. But anyway, I guess winning the second in a row would be significant. Beat those high schoolers.
All right. Any other trustee reports tonight? Trustee Lanisa?
Yes, I'd also like to invite everybody to the 3 fundraising events that the Roselle Arts and Culture Foundation are having. First one coming up on March 7th over at Linford Winery. The next one will be over at Pollyanna for a trivia night on April 10th. And the third one will be a cooking challenge on May 23rd. All of the fundraising that is happening here is to be for the first responders relief artwork that is going to be built in front of the police station. And we're hoping that we can get some community support on that.
Great, thank you so much. Any other trustee reports tonight? All right, seeing none, any report from the village clerk's office?
No report, Mayor.
Any report from the village attorney?
No report, Mayor.
Village administrator, any report? All right, treasurer's report,
Boy.
break the streak, so.
I don't have a swearing in or anything, but I did want to introduce the board to,
Could swear him in.
to the best of your ability, please.
We'll weaponize you with a calculator. So.
3 more years. So George Pappas is the new Assistant Finance Director. He came on board last week, and I just wanted to introduce him to the board. In case I'm not here and George is here, you'll know he's supposed to be here. But George comes to us from the Northern Suburban Special Recreation Association. He was the Director of Finance and HR. His CPA, he received in 2015. So we're happy to have him here, and he'll be learning all about the village.
Great. Welcome to the team.
Thank
Now, when you came on, Tom, you said you would find an
I
extra
did
$1 billion
not say
in
that.
cash.
I never said that.
But not
You put
Mr.
words in my-
Pappas is not- he's not
I
tasked.
found an assistant finance director. So in your packet tonight is the January treasurer's report. As I say in the beginning of it, happy new fiscal year. I was counting today, and this is my 9th January report, which seems a little odd because it doesn't seem like I've been here that long, but
So cake for your 10th.
I know, I think I was laying the groundwork there for that. So it is obviously new in the year, so nothing, to report as far as trends go. But we did have a lot, and you'll see that on one of the pages, a lot of public works overtime during the month of January. And of course, everybody knows there's a lot of snow and a lot of cold, and they worked very hard to clear the streets. We had none in the early part of the winter and kind of made up for it in January. But that is really the one, really outstanding item. In the general fund, the village received about 1.4 million and spent about 1.7 million. For revenues under expenditures by about 300,000. But again, it's early in the year. We haven't even gotten any property tax, and you'll see all this build as we go along. I did want to point out page 37 of the report, page 42 of the packet, I should say. Yeah, it is page 37 of my report. Boy, I have a long report. Page 42 of your packet is the sales tax for the month, for the history of it. And you'll see that's 2 months in a row that we've had negatives. And while significant, a lot of that has to do with 1 or 2 sales taxpayers that may have had significant increases last year and then more normal this year or vice versa. So it's nothing that, all of our businesses are reporting lower sales. It's just, especially in our top 25, there's just been a little bit of an anomaly there in the last couple of months. And then on a couple pages down is the telecom tax. Outstanding year so far for 2023. It was only down 2%. It's only been down 2% for the whole year, where we've been averaging 12% over the last 10 years. So it's nice to see that revenue has kind of stayed flat relatively and has had a more, I think, positive months than negative or just about the same. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have on this report.
Any questions for Tom? I promised the administrator I didn't have any questions for staff, but here I am with a question. But I know there's a misconception that I've seen, and I think this is an appropriate time to address it because we're looking at our revenues. And so one is that the village doesn't have any utility taxes, or that's somehow tied to home rule. However, we do have a tax that we receive on natural gas, on electricity, and telecommunications. All 3 are utility taxes. And so it's not necessarily a home rule authority difference there. And it should be noted that all 3 of those utility taxes are substantially down year over year in terms of revenue. Can you just speak a little bit to that?
Yeah, sure. So you're correct. I mean, we've had those taxes for years. And all 3 of them are what funds the General Capital Projects Fund. So all of them supported a lot of the debt that we had outstanding for several years, and we've seen that debt fall off. Natural gas tax is very cyclical. In fact, I've been throwing the graph in there to show the price per therm, and really it's tied to the price per therm. As that goes up, our tax goes up. As that goes down, our tax goes down. So that's extremely cyclical, and can spike and drop at a moment. In fact, we went into 2023 expecting to see high natural gas prices for at least another year, and that did not happen. The the people that, do the futures on that were wrong. The electricity tax is a little bit more stable as based on the amount of electricity, the amount of electricity you use, not on the price per therm. So that stays relatively stable unless you have a big electric user come in and leave. That has been pretty stable. Telecom tax, as people have cut the cord with their phones, that has dropped. And that's why I say it's been dropping 12% every year. And this is the first year we've actually may come in positive for or as close to zero as we can. So yes, all three are very volatile at times. And the telecom, we can no longer count.
Thank you so much. Last call for questions. Thank you so much for the January treasurer's report. We'll move on to unfinished business. First, we have the consent agenda. All items listed on the consent agenda are considered to be routine, procedural, informational, self-explanatory, or non-controversial in nature and be enacted in one motion. There will be no discussion of these items. Tonight, we have presentation approval of the village board minutes of February 12th, 2024. And that is all. So is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
We'll give that to trustee Domke. Is there a
Second.
second? Trustee Trejo. Madam Clerk, when you're ready, can we have a roll call, please?
Trustee Domke?
Aye.
Trustee Trejo?
Aye.
Trustee Delapenna?
Aye.
Trustee Forsythe?
Aye.
Trustee Lanisa?
Aye.
Trustee Pierakowski?
Aye. That motion carries. We'll now continue on with our normal agenda under community development. Trustee Lanisa.
Yes, I'd like to adopt a resolution approving a plat of consolidation for the property commonly referred to as 125 and 145 Forest Avenue in Roselle, Illinois.
Second.
Thank you so much. That was made by trustee Lanisa and seconded by trustee Trejo. Is there any discussion on the plat consolidation? All right, seeing none. Could we have a roll call, please?
Trustee Lanisa?
Aye.
Trustee Trejo?
Aye.
Trustee Delapenna?
Aye.
Trustee Domke?
Aye.
Trustee Forsythe?
Aye.
Trustee Pierakowski?
That motion carries.
I'd like to now make a motion to pass an ordinance granting a special use permit and a variance from the village zoning code for the property commonly known as 125 and 145 Forest Avenue in Roselle, Illinois.
Second.
Thank you so much. Is there any discussion?
Nice plan.
All right. Any other questions or comments? And it was unanimously recommended by the Planning and Zoning Commission. It's worth noting as well. So, all right. Can we have a roll call, please?
Trustee Lanisa?
Aye.
Trustee Trejo?
Aye.
Trustee Delapenna?
Aye.
Trustee Domke?
Aye.
Trustee Forsythe?
Aye.
Pierakowski?
Aye.
That motion carries. Thank you so much, Trustee Lanisa. We'll move on to administration. Trustee Forsythe.
Thank you, Mayor Pileski. I would like to move adoption of a resolution approving and authorizing the execution of a memorandum of understanding by and between the Village of Roselle and the Roselle Public Library.
Second.
Give that one to Trustee Prokowski for diversity's sake. Any discussion or comments from the board? All right, seeing none, the library will be taking this up at their Wednesday meeting. And so once that's done, assuming they pass it, we'll have a joint statement that'll be released by both the Village of Roselle and the library regarding kind of the agreement we're embarking on. I'd say for those of you that have read the item, it just gives us an opportunity to both do our due diligence and evaluation. And there's a lot of work that still needs to be done. It doesn't guarantee anything, but I think it's a great example of intergovernmental collaboration for the betterment of Roselle. So with that being the case, can we have a roll call, please?
Trustee Forsythe?
Aye.
Pierakowski?
Aye.
Trustee Delapenna?
Aye.
Trustee Domke?
Aye.
Trustee Lanisa?
Aye.
Trustee Trejo?
Aye.
And that motion carries.
That is all for me tonight.
Thank you so much. We have nothing under fire or police. We'll go to Public Works. Trustee Prokowski.
Thank you, Mayor Plesky. We're going to start off with item 13A, receiving a presentation from Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning, or CMAP.
Awesome. Thank you so much. If you guys don't mind, for our audience at home, if you guys can just speak into the microphone so that everyone, and those who may decide to watch this later and hear your wonderful presentation.
As I said earlier, this is going to take about an hour and a half, so I'm really glad that you're here for the evening. I'm kidding you. My name is Jamie Jackson. I am a principal planner at the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning. I'm also the program manager for our Accessible Communities program. I'm joined here tonight by my colleague, George Perkins Anene. So we are here tonight just to provide a quick presentation, hopefully quick, and talk about the work that we're going to do with the village and just provide overall education and awareness about accessibility in our region and what we're going to do in Roselle. And I do want to say for the scouts here that George is an Eagle Scout, so.
There you go. That was a great tie-in.
Not planning on that.
So
All right.
tell your parents now you want to major in urban planning, right?
Okay, so first got to do the whole CMAP spiel. Who is CMAP? We are the Metropolitan Planning Organization. We cover 7 counties in northeastern Illinois, which includes 284 municipalities. We are guided by our regional plan onto 2050, which stands by 3 pillars of resilience, inclusive growth, and prioritized investment. And certainly accessibility follows under that. I'm going to quickly run through disability rights in America. So really, this is a pretty relatively recent thing, right? So based on Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, everything should be accessible because it says you cannot discriminate against folks with disabilities if you receive federal funding. So essentially, all public entities that receive federal funding should be accessible, but that's not what's happening. A couple other legislative pieces came into play, and then we have the Americans with Disabilities Act, which has been on the books for about 34 years. And I think you mentioned earlier, unfunded mandate, right? We say you have to be accessible, federal government says you have to be accessible, but they're not giving us the funding to do so. And so we are left with the built environment and facilities that still are not accessible today, 34 years after the passage of this act. And so we want to talk, well, who is the disability community when we're talking about the ADA? So there are 3 prongs under the ADA of what a disability is. And essentially, it's someone that has limitations beyond what is typical of the general population. It can be a history of disability, and it could be someone that's just viewed as having a disability. And one thing to note is it's not permanent. It doesn't have to be permanent. It can be short-term, episodic. For the HCM, the person that had open heart surgery, right? Their recovery, that could be a disability. And so what we know is that nationwide, 1 in 4 people have a disability. 25% of the population has a disability. And the most common disability that we see are people with mobility disabilities, right? We can see that. We can see with someone's using a cane, a wheelchair, or any of these mobility devices. But a lot of disabilities are invisible. Visual disabilities, hearing disabilities, cognitive disabilities. So that's something that we want to keep in mind when we are talking about the disability community. It's not just folks that have trouble getting around physically. And now I'll pass it over to George. That'll bring it down to what we're doing regionally and locally.
Thank you, Jamie. So nearly about 500,000 individuals, or 5% of our population, has a disability or is affected by mobility issues with our infrastructure. And between 20% to 42% of individuals over 65 years old have at least one disability. So according to the 2022 American Community Survey, Roselle population with a disability of 1,803, which accounts for 8% of the population in total. These numbers represent the percentage of population in Roselle facing various types of difficulties, including hearing, vision, cognitive, mobility, self-care, and independent living. And nearly a quarter, or close to 25% of the population over 65 is facing mobility challenges and may have difficulty moving around here in Roselle. So there are 5 administrative requirements for municipalities to achieve compliance under the Title II of the ADA municipality obligations. So right now, we're currently working on the 5th requirement, which involves developing a transition plan. And so far, 20% of our communities in the region are ADA compliant. Roselle is next in line, and we're excited to further progress and get more numbers of more ADA compliance within our region. So what is a transition plan? So essentially, a transition plan is a roadmap that identifies these things that are needed or modified and changed to the program and facilities accessible. This includes things like removing physical barriers, involving public and planning, detailing how facilities will become accessible, setting a timeline for changes, and making an implementation plan. And so our transition plan should last between 10 months, and we'll be starting in April of this year. So right now, CMAP, our ADA program is involved in various projects enhancing compliance and accessibility in our region, focusing on areas including data collection, research, technical assistance, and accessible training. Speaking of training, we actually have some trainings coming up that are free. These training sessions cover various aspects of ADA, regional accessibility, compliance, and public right-of-way. We invite municipal staff, board members, or anyone that's interested about learning about ADA to join our trainings and participate. And if you want more details, you can find it on our website. So we're going to go through a quick scenario called What is Accessible? So essentially, the idea behind this is to provide examples of barriers that are within our public right-of-way that are impacted by accessibility for people that are disabled, or quite frankly, just all users in general. So I'm going to go through the images, and it may get a little bit harder, but we're just going to just see what's wrong with the thing, and then we'll just say it out loud. So hopefully it should be interactive. So anybody can give an idea of what's going on here and why it's not accessible? This happens a lot in our region.
Sidewalks not shoveled.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's difficult for bus passengers to get on the PACE bus. It's also not accessible at all for people in wheelchairs or with crutches or anything like that. What about this image?
Flooded.
Mud.
Absolutely. There's a flooded sidewalk ramp that makes it difficult for pedestrians to access the ramp. And also looks kind of nasty too. What about this one? Now, we've seen this one a lot on IDOT roads.
The road to nowhere.
Exactly, a road to nowhere.
Bridges too.
So essentially, a multi-use path that ends abruptly before going over a freeway. We see many of those here in the region. What about this one? Very similar to the last one.
There's a curb.
Yes, there's a curb,
There's like 4 sidewalk blocks.
right? There's 4 sidewalk blocks. So it makes it difficult for people that are trying to access to the bus stop right there. Grass, and then there's no sidewalk. That's an example in that picture.
Tripping hazard.
Right here in your neighborhoods, around your house. Anybody?
Tripping hazard.
Tripping hazard, exactly. Now, this is a big issue for everybody, not just in general, just being a disability, but total for anybody, because no one wants to get hurt. And also, the village doesn't want to get sued, so.
So is there a number that can be off, like 1 inch, 2 inch,
I believe ProAg has a 1/4 inch.
1/4 inch?
It's quite small, and that's about 3-inch rise right there.
And here's the last one. Can anybody?
It's too narrow.
Exactly, it's too narrow. There's a hole in the sidewalk. So this actually happens a lot when it comes from our IDOT roads, because they put the pole
Good for the
literally
tree.
right in the middle of the sidewalk. Doesn't make it accessible for anyone. And so just to wrap it all up, the key takeaway, at least with the curb cut effect, is just saying that this affects everybody, just not anybody with just disabilities. This is an ongoing issue in our society.
And we're looking for ways to make it better and more accessible for all people. And that is pretty much it of our slide. Not a full hour of talking.
So much for allowing us time to speak with you this evening.
Thank you so much. And if I recall correctly, getting a transition plan in place will help us secure grants to help address some of these issues. And a lot of times grant funding asks the first question, do you have an ADA transition plan, yes or no? And until this point, we've had to say no. So this should hopefully help us find the necessary funding to make these improvements. So
To be clear, just to clarify, this is a public right-of-way transition plan, so it will not deal with facilities assessment because we are funded by IDOT, so it needs to be transportation related.
absolutely. So businesses who are concerned suddenly we're going to come in and say, hey, you need to fix this or that. That's not going to be the case here. Trustee Domke, any?
I need to ask this because I've always was taught that we should call it a disability, not a handicap. Is that still prevalent? I mean, I see people just put up handicap signs and it's really a disability, right?
Absolutely, yeah, the language, like a lot of things, is evolving. And so, people first language, so a person with a disability. We don't consider it a handicap.
Right, okay.
Any other questions from the board? Well, thank you so much for your time and looking forward to working with you. So
Okay, then, moving on to item 13B, I'd like to move adoption of a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a memorandum of understanding with the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning, CMAP, for the preparation of an ADA transition plan.
Second.
give that to trustee Domke. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, could we have a roll call, please?
Trustee Pierakowski?
Aye.
Trustee Domke?
Aye.
Trustee Delapenna?
Aye.
Trustee Forsythe?
Aye.
Trustee Lanisa?
Aye.
Trustee Trejo?
Aye. That motion carries.
That is all I have, Mayor Plesky.
Thank you so much. We'll move it to finance. Trustee Delapenna.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to approve the accounts payable list for February 26, 2024 in the amount of $1,366,957.45.
Second. Any discussion on the bills? Seeing none, could we have a roll call, please?
Trustee Delapenna?
Aye.
Trustee Trejo?
Aye.
Trustee Domke?
Aye.
Trustee Forsythe?
Aye.
Trustee Laniska?
Aye.
Trustee Pierakowski?
Aye.
That motion carries. That concludes unfinished business. We'll now move on to new business. And to get us kicked off, we'll have Public Works Director Karen Young give us a presentation on the planned wastewater system improvements. And then later on conduct a public hearing to secure $63.6 million in multiple low interest loans through the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency. So Karen, how's it going?
Good evening. So as the mayor mentioned, I'm here tonight to talk about low interest loan funding for our future wastewater improvement projects. And sorry, I just realized I have the clicker here. So in 2019, the village retained Trotter and Associates to identify wastewater treatment and collection improvement projects necessary to maintain the village's aging infrastructure, but also to address regulatory requirements that we knew were on the horizon. They studied 3 of the village's treatment areas, which included Devlin, Boderman, and the MWRD collection system. As noted on the slides in front of you, Devlin was built in 1928. It has undergone several improvements over time, but it's still an aging infrastructure system. As part of it, it also includes several lift stations and several miles of sanitary sewer and force main. The next one is our Boderman and treatment plant that also was originally constructed as part of a development in 1974 and was additionally reconstructed into what's now known as the Boderman treatment plant in 1992. Again, another aging infrastructure system. And the third system is our MWRD collection system. While we don't treat the wastewater in that system, it is treated by MWRD, which is a Metropolitan Water Reclamation District. We are responsible for the lift stations and the miles of sanitary sewer within that system. So the overall village's responsibility, we have 2 wastewater treatment plants, 10 lift stations, about 90 miles of sanitary sewer, and 4 miles of force main that the village is required to fund and maintain. So as part of the overall study, it helped develop a 5-year capital plan, which can be found on the village's website. And that determined we have $80 million of funding needed to cover the anticipated projects to meet the regulatory requirements and aging infrastructure. So the first phase of the proposed projects are anticipated to cost just over $60 million. The village is proposing to pay for these projects utilizing low-interest loans. And as part of this process, the Village Water Pollution Control Loan Program requires a public hearing, and that's what we're here for tonight. It's looking to seek public comments regarding environmental impacts of the proposed projects. The comment period will be open through May 7th, and the loan will have a 20-year repayment period with an estimated interest rate of 1.81%. So how do we pay for these loans? There's been several community forums, as the mayor has mentioned, over the last year that has discussed at length what the village is up against regarding these unfunded mandates. So if the referendum does pass, users will be, or does not pass, I'm sorry, if the referendum does not pass, user fees will be increased to cover the cost of these projects, which will double over time. If the referendum does pass, home rule, tax revenues, and user fees will be used to cover the cost of these projects. So breaking things down by the two locations. Our Dublin wastewater treatment plant, the proposed loan includes 4 projects at a cost of approximately $50.7 million. These improvements include phosphorus improvements. This is all due to the unfunded mandates that we must have completed by 2028. It also includes plant capacity limits. We've got peak flows that we have to meet to comply with state regulatory requirements. And these improvements will help us meet that. Our current plant is rated at 2 million gallons per day, and we will be increasing it up to 2.6 million gallons per day. It also will address aging infrastructure. As previously mentioned, this plant was constructed in 1928. The plant runs continuous 24/7, which takes a toll on the equipment in these facilities to run continuously. And then lastly, the construction for the improvements at this plant will begin in 2026 and will be completed by 2028 to meet our regulatory requirements. The next location is our Boderman wastewater treatment plant. At that location, we have 3 proposed projects at a cost of approximately $12.8 million. Again, this plant has to be upgraded to meet the requirements for phosphorus updates. This plant was also built in 1992 and has the same as the other wastewater treatment plant of continuous operation, which has an impact on those facilities and the equipment at that. The construction projects will start in 2025 and will be completed at this location in 2027. The projects I just discussed are the first phase of the overall wastewater improvement projects that will need to be completed. There will be more in the future. For this first round, the total construction loan amount is approximately $63.5 million. It will be on an annual loan repayment of 20 years, which means the village will need to have revenues of about $3.7 million per year to pay off the loans during that time. The total loan payment, including those interest charges, are about $75.8 million. So as mentioned, there will be additional projects that will be necessary in the future that will require additional EPA loans. And this next slide represents some of those projects. These combined projects over time through what's shown here in 2032 will cover approximately 80 million of improvements that will require additional revenues of 4.5 million for these loan payments for these projects as well. So the last part is the public comment period. As a reminder, the public hearing documents are available on the village's website on the budget section at roselle.il.us/budget. The written public comment period is open until the end of the day on March 7th, and they can be submitted either to the village clerk, Amanda Hausman, or the EPA project manager, Bill Janikowski, which is noted at the addresses above and can also be found on the village's website. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have regarding the next steps in our project.
Any questions from the board? Trustee Domke?
Just have 2. I tried to read in here expansion of these facilities. Are we also expanding them to take up new growth in a village?
Well, there's two components to that. There's always new growth, but we're actually at a limit right now with our plant that requires expansion because we do have high flow events and we're right up against the limits of what we can from a plant standpoint. So we are required, regardless of any future development, to expand for that component. But then for sure, if there's anything additional coming in, we would need to.
Part of this money.
Correct.
And then the second thing most projects always have an overrun. Is the overrun calculated into these loans?
So there's always a contingency that's built into projects. You know, certainly as the economy changes, that'll have different impacts, but we have always built into our projects a certain percentage of contingency to help accommodate
That's
that.
also in this number.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board?
So it begins, huh?
So it begins. All right, thank you so much. With that being the case, as our Public Works Director mentioned, this is a statutory requirement for us in order to borrow the low interest ILEPA loans at 1.85%. That's kind of a steal right now in the market. So with that being the case, I'd like to entertain a motion to open a public hearing concerning the village's plan to secure 63.6 million in multiple low interest loans to the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency for several planned wastewater system improvements at the Devlin and Boderman waste treatment plants. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, trustee Delapenna. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, trustee Trejo. Could we have a roll call, please?
Trustee Delapenna.
Aye.
Trustee Trejo.
Aye.
Trustee Donkey.
Aye.
Trustee Forsythe.
Aye.
Trustee Lanisa.
Aye.
Pierkowski.
Aye. And motion carries. Public notice was published in the Daily Herald on February 16th, 2024, and is on file with the clerk's office. At this time, the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency is seeking public comment regarding the project summaries and the preliminary environmental impact determination for the proposed wastewater system improvements. Is there anyone in attendance tonight who wants to make a comment? Let the record show none. Are there any questions or comments from the village board at this time? Record show none. At this time then, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
Moved.
Thank you, trustee Trejo. Is there a second?
Second.
I'll give it to trustee Lanisa. Could we have a roll call, please?
Trustee Trejo.
Aye.
Trustee Lanisa. Trustee Delapenna.
Aye.
Trustee Donkey.
Aye.
Trustee Forsythe.
Aye.
Trustee Pierkowski.
Aye. That motion carries. Thank you so much. And as Public Works Director Young had mentioned, you can also submit written comment to the village clerk as well as the project manager in Springfield. So thank you so much. And to your point, Wayne, so it begins. Not the kind of money we'd like to spend there, but it's a good thing to keep, the environment clean and our toilets continuing to flush.
Can we just mention one thing, David, that you brought up one time? How much of the phosphate going into the water is attributable to the suburbs of Chicago as opposed to elsewhere?
Let's do that under other business. So that's okay. We'll keep the new business rolling and receive a presentation from Assistant Village Administrator Brian Jonas regarding recommendations to our public records with the Freedom of Information Act and amending the village clerk duties. So.
All right, so there's multiple things to discuss tonight. The first in the packet is amendments to our FOIA policy itself. So since the board had amended village code in regards to the clerk's duties and just the fact that the policy itself hasn't been updated since 2011, staff made some changes to the policy for the board to consider. The first is to really designate the village administrator's office as a primary FOIA office rather than the clerk's office. Liz, the deputy clerk, performs those duties as the board allows. And the policy was inconsistent with just kind of the FOIA process in general, it being a staff process more than elected process. We also cleaned up some language just in regards to some of the contact information that has changed over time. And then also removed specific individuals from other departments that are appointed as FOIA officers, but they're not the primary FOIA officer that triages all of our requests and kind of runs that master list of all requests that comes into the village. So that's the first section. I could stop there if you have questions about the policy itself.
Any questions from the board? I'll just add that we went through all this with the village clerk. It's just, she's not here because of a family conflict, but she was in support of, all the things that we're discussing and is aware. So there's no shadow agenda going on with her not being here, us discussing this tonight.
All right, so with the changes of the policy come changes and obviously other documentation that we post on our website and have downstairs in Village Hall, readily available for the public. So that's our FOIA brochure and then the public information to display. So the FOIA brochure that has our contact information, just general process on how to submit public requests to us. And then the public information to display has not only the information that's required by state statute, but then other information and documents that could be made readily available for the public to view. So that list before used to be really exhaustive. And we trimmed that down to be a more reflecting of just what we actually have on hand for people that come in requesting specific documents, and then also to educate people more and more on using our village website where all of these documents and information is always displayed and readily available. So I can stop there too if you have questions on just the brochure or the public information to display document.
Any questions from the board? Hopefully we pass in flying colors under our next random audit from the public on this. So
Yeah, we'll see. They're always fun. They don't actually seem to be looking for the documents that they even asked for, but we'll be square away. Next on the list is code amendment. So there's a draft resolution attached to this packet that puts an additional sentence under the deputy clerk's section of the code. And that's pretty much to streamline what we already do from a staff perspective. Liz does a lot of the duties already that are under the clerk's duties in code. So this kind of streamlines that to match what she's currently doing, but to also kind of provide the clerk not to have to provide written notice that allows Liz to do those duties. So this just really streamlines what's already currently happening.
any questions from the board? All right.
And then last on the list, like David mentioned, the clerk recommended that her salary be adjusted. We cannot adjust that salary midterm for an elected official. The recommended amount that she was looking to reduce by would be equal to an incumbent village trustee. So that's where that number of 5,796 comes from. Technically, this ordinance that would be drafted and put on a future agenda would be effective at the time of the next election, which is in 2025. So it's kind of similar to the amendment that we made in 2022 when the compensation was changed overall. But I think the board should discuss not only just the amount, but also the classifications for certifications that exist for municipal clerks and kind of how it's painted currently in our ordinance to receive additional compensation based on those certifications.
Questions or comments?
Additional compensation.
So when we, and I think Patty brought this up when we were looking at things a number of years ago, but if you achieve certain levels of clerk certification, then there's bonuses assured, correct, and other things. And so I think with that being the case, it's kind of not relevant anymore and we can streamline a lot of that just to keep the clerk's role essentially identical to a trustee's role from a compensation perspective. And this was the recommendation by Amanda herself.
I just ask then, because this is the compensation issue and the clerk will not be, the compensation will not be changed until her term ends. Why are we doing this now? Even though I like the idea, but why, if Liz is gonna do the work, why doesn't Liz get the money? I mean,
Well, the ordinance itself technically couldn't be in effect until the next election in 2025. But we wanted to bring this to your attention first to have you deliberate over what that number is. Separately, an agreement could be passed and administratively approved that puts that into effect. So you're correct. While the ordinance would be for maybe the new clerk, or if Amanda runs again and gets elected as clerk, that would be in effect. And then we would work with the village attorney to draft a different agreement that would allow that number to be matched by I don't want to be wrong in the technical terminology, but really giving that money to the village through an agreement.
And I think just for everyone's sake, it's essentially cutting the village clerk's salary in half almost. So just, we're not giving a raise here or anything like that. We're actually doing quite the opposite. I think it's something that probably people don't realize or understand is we're not being compensated ridiculously so, but also I think how often do we reduce salaries for elected officials, right? So we've done that once already. We have 0 elected officials on the public pension system for the first time in decades in Roselle. I think that's something that I'm pretty proud of personally. So I think that this is just kind of us continuing to be reasonable and frugal, frankly, and making sure that this isn't a lucrative outcome for people. So I don't know if there's any other opinions on that matter or.
Yeah, I think I'm okay with it being brought down to the non-incumbent rate. And not having the escalators.
All right.
Okay with it.
Okay, so consensus to move forward with all 4 areas of recommendation from staff?
Yes.
All right, thank you so much for the time on that. With that being the case, we do have a second opportunity for public comment. So is there any member of the public that wishes to address the board at this time? Let the record show none. As far as other business goes, so trustee Domke, well,
You should have done it during the public meeting, the public hearing for.
I love it, I love it.
I mean, I think as far as your question goes, and I think that part of it is it's a frustrating situation and it doesn't change the regulatory position we're in, but obviously a lot of the nutrient removal requirements are aimed to trying to help improve the health of the Mississippi River watershed. And so that's obviously a vital waterway for our country, but also for shipping and other industries since it leads to the Gulf of Mexico. And there's been a lot of issues that have arisen as we've continued to see more phosphorus being used in, residential and farming applications. That is really wreaking havoc in the Gulf of Mexico. I will not deny that is a serious issue. What I take issue with and what a recent study from the Federal Environmental Protection Agency kind of highlighted was that we need to be focusing more on farming or agricultural commercial use of phosphorus. That is a much larger issue from a phosphorus pollution perspective than our urban areas. It's not to minimize that, we're probably not over fertilizing lawns and doing other things. As a gardener, I do a lot of fertilization of my flowers. But what we are doing may not have as big of an environmental impact as may need to happen for the environment. And so while that is incredibly frustrating, it does not change the fact that we still are obligated to, and at least I will say the village joining the Salt Creek Working Group gave us an extension to meeting these deadlines. So we have done things to help buy ourselves some more time. But unfortunately, the reality is still that we have to make these changes. So to your point.
I just think it's nice to have it on the record that we have a huge burden, and yet we're probably a very small player in the problem.
I wouldn't disagree. I don't know if us spending $80 million is going to solve the problem in Roselle, but
For the Mississippi River.
or the Mississippi River or the Gulf of Mexico. But that is what we're up against, and that's what is driving a lot of this. So is there any other business for discussion only? Well, on that note, is there a motion to adjourn?
Oh,
All right, Lee has made a motion. Is there a second?
Yeah.
Trustee Domke has seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Seeing none, meeting's adjourned at 8:06.